We now have the pleasure of being joined by Scott Mutryn. He's a football analyst for Boston College games, former Eagles quarterback. Scott, how you doing on this Wednesday morning?
I'm doing great, Ethan. Great to join you guys. Always good to have the Syracuse students coming in and chatting with them before these games. It's always been a nice treat along the way. So good to see you guys.
A pleasure having you on the show. Let's talk about Boston College a little bit. A team that's won 4 games in a row, so it's been a pretty much the exact opposite of what we've seen here in Syracuse over the last 4. A team that's won 4 in a row versus a team that's gotten blown out in 4 straight games. I guess, plain and simple, why is Boston College playing their best football of the year right now?
Well, I think they kind of identified who they are. When you started the season, you were a different type of team with Emmett Morehead at quarterback. Thomas Castellanos rises onto the scene and has done some amazing things since he started. I think when you see that you have an experienced offensive line with the 2 transfers that have come in with Kyle Hergel and Logan Taylor to solidify the left side, they really found out the type of team that they are. And, you're never the same year in, year out, right? You always got to re-identify each team. And it takes some time to do that because you don't have the luxury of preseason football like the NFL. So it takes some time for them to make the adjustments and figure out who they are, and then build, game plan around that, and to find out those strengths and really accentuate them, and then continue to build and grow from the type of team you're going to be that year.
Coming off of the slow start and obviously on a 4-game win streak, what has been the most impressive improvement that the team as a whole has made to kind of parlay that into the 4-game win streak right now?
Well, I think they've really embraced who they are offensively, where they're going to use the offensive line in a myriad of ways to run the football consistently. If you look, they're number 1 in the ACC in running the football, so that's part of their identity. But that you could say, well, other BC teams have done that in the past. Well, they also have the ability to throw the ball too. They're averaging over 200 yards passing a game as well. So you're able to do some things and keep defenses on their heels and use the quarterback as a weapon in the running and passing game. And then defensively, I think what's been the biggest transformation for them is adding some multiplicity and some complications to their defensive fronts, and not being afraid to get after quarterbacks and other teams for fear of giving up big plays. Because before, you're worried about giving up points because you didn't think you're going to be able to score with people, but now the defense is playing kind of pinning their ears back, for lack of a better term, to use that cliche, to go try to make some plays and be aggressive, because they know that even if they give up a score here, that the offense has the capabilities of putting a lot of points on the board. They're averaging over 30 points a game. So the defense is not afraid to go out and try to make a play. And I think that's something that they've needed to do. You like to think that, BC players are smart kids. They can handle that on the defensive end to add some complexity. So, that's what they've done. And you've seen that kind of, especially coming out of the bye week against Georgia Tech, they changed some things up and added some pressures and different looks. And one of the biggest reasons and concerns that they had to do with it is they weren't winning enough on first and second down. I believe in the beginning of the year, they were one of the bottom teams in the country in their first and second down performance. And that didn't allow their third down pressure packages to really take effect, because most teams were in 3rd and 1 to 3. So when you're able to get in 3rd and long situations, you're able to use some of those different, whether it's blitz packages, whether it's zone dogs, whether it's, man coverage, whether it's, staying back and dropping 8 and only rushing. You're able to do a bunch of different things that way. So they've really kind of taken that to heart and really spent a lot of time on that. And it's going to be interesting to see how they continue to evolve in the last 4 games.
Going back to the game against Florida State in week 3, that's a Seminoles team that if the college football playoff was this weekend would be in, based on the rankings that came out on Tuesday evening. Why was Boston College able to keep it so close with one of the best teams in the country after, I was at the game when Syracuse played in Tallahassee and it was 41-3. What were the Eagles able to do that kept them in a game against one of the best teams in the country?
Well, I think a couple things happened. Florida State may have stepped off the gas a little bit when they got a lead in the second half. BC jumped on them a little bit. The unfamiliarity with Thomas Castellanos and what he liked to do posed a lot of problems for Florida State. If you look at that game, you'll see that I think BC was in 12 third and 8+ situations. And those are usually anywhere between 10 to 15% conversion. And Thomas Castellanos converted at a 75 to 80% clip. So that was absolutely mind-blowing for the Florida State defense. And they didn't know what to do. He kind of had them in a flummox because BC would run him. They would drop back, and then he'd break contain. He'd throw the ball because they'd protect him. The offensive line did a really good job that game. So Florida State didn't really know what to do. They didn't know whether to pressure, whether to sit back. BC also got a turnover where they're able to recover a fumble for a touchdown, and they got it to a close game. And they were right there in the end, but they had a lot of penalties in crucial times in that game. If you look back, there were a lot of second and third and fives that turned into third and 10 and third and 15s. So over the course of the game, that kind of is what hurt them the most. But I think the ability of the offense to really put Florida State on their heels, and they didn't really know what to do. And then the defense to be able to make that one big play and get a turnover. If you can turn over and score in college football, that's going to change momentum for a while. And I think that was what it was. Florida State, very talented team. So, but BC did a good job of containing them in the second half, and they did a really good job of containing them on third down. Florida State was, memory serves me, I want to say 1 for 8 or 1 for 9 on third down. So if you're able to get off the field in that way, that's a big help, especially for your offense, and an offense like BC that really likes and wants to be on the field a lot.
Castellanos, since starting earlier this year, has been one of the biggest players on BC's roster. I think he's third in the ACC in rushing as a quarterback, or just generally,
Yep.
but as a quarterback. What has been the most impressive thing that you've seen from his development since he got start number 1 to where he is right now, riding that 4-game winning streak for the Eagles?
I just think I like to call him an eraser, right? Because he's able to erase a lot of mistakes and able to erase people if they run a wrong route, if they miss a block, if the defense, has great coverage or sends a great pressure. He's able to erase it from just his ability to never let a play die. It's also kind of some of the things that can be frustrated with him. If you've seen with the interceptions and turnovers he's not afraid at any part of the field to try and make a play. Sometimes you got to learn to live and fight another day, but sometimes, that ability to make a play at any time is something that is unique. You can't take it away from him. He's special. Offenses like to talk about being on schedule, right? Like first and second down, getting 3 to 4 yards so you can stay on schedule. Like I think with BC as it is right now with Castellanos, there's never a schedule with him because I've seen him convert 2nd and 25. I've seen him convert 3rd and 18. He's special in that ability. You'd like to see him be a little more consistent in the passing game, but a dynamic playmaker, man, I haven't seen much like him. He reminds me a lot, and some of it's the number and the stature, but he's not as, I would say, as fast as Kyler Murray. But if you look at the build and the way in which they play, it's quite similar.
Moving holistically a little bit, a topic we've been discussing here on the show the past couple of weeks, specifically as it relates to Syracuse, but I think it applies, somewhat to Boston College too. When you look at football in the Northeast and the changing landscape of collegiate athletics, talking about recruiting, NIL, transfer portal. I would think that BC has some of similar issues when it comes to getting players to come play in the Northeast that Syracuse does. How do you see this changing landscape apply to Boston College, especially as the ACC now moves forward with the 17-team schedule model it announced the other day?
Right. Well, you obviously did some homework on me because you obviously know I'm on the NIL collective for BC. I'm one of the board members there, so it's been an issue, and it all kind of started with Zay Flowers, to tell you the truth, because Zay had an opportunity to go to a school down south. They offered him a chance to go, play there, and we didn't want to lose him. And we, the other board members came up with a plan to kind of put this together. Jeff Hafley supported it. Obviously know it's needed, and we came together and raised some money. Now, what you sell there at BC is not only the education and where you're at, is the opportunity after you're done with your career to come back and be connected to a lot of the alums and have the opportunity to find what it is career-wise. Honestly, I tell all the guys I want them to play for as long as they can. It's the NFL, CFL, XFL, USFL, overseas. Go do that. But there also needs to be, you need to be competitive in that to give some guys some money. And you may not be able to give top dollar, but what we gave Zay Flowers was a competitive ability to stay at BC. He stayed in an offense and he was familiar with, a quarterback he was familiar with, an environment in which he was familiar with, where he was the focal point. He ends up having a record-breaking year. ends up being a first round pick, where if he would have come out the year before I think he was a third or fourth round graded. So he may have given up money on the front end, but in the long end, in the long end being a year, which isn't that long, in the long end, he ends up making more money for staying at Boston College and being a focal point. And that's something that schools like BC and Syracuse really, really need to do. Hey, you can go there, but are you going to fit? You're a hired gun. What's the culture like of the team? What happens if you have a lot of hired guns in the team and things don't start going your way? Do you lose the locker room? You saw some of that in Texas A&M last year, right? They ended up being 4-8, and they had a $20 million team or something. I mean, don't quote me on that, but you know what I mean? They paid a lot of money. So culture is important. Environment's important. Where you are in the offense, like what type of offense are you running? What type of defense are you running? How am I going to be a focal point? Am I going to do all this? So you can get opportunities to make some money, and we're raising money for all our athletes at BC because that's something that's important to us, because we think that if we want to be a consistent athletic program, you need to be able to be competitive in this space. Not a lot of people are supportive of it, but you got to be in the mix. You got to be in the mix if you want to compete.
Yeah, sorry for jumping in there. Just
it's
a really interesting topic because Syracuse just announced its official NIL collective a few weeks ago called Orange United, and now every time I open Twitter, I'm scrolling and seeing a different athlete on campus, whether it be on the football team or the men's soccer team or on the volleyball team, saying help support us with Orange United. We got this collective going. So in terms of what you guys have going on at Boston College, was the Zay Flowers situation kind of a one-off, or is that something you're trying to do for every single athlete, specifically related to football now?
It was not a one-off. It was a mobilization that if we're going to remain competitive, we need to start this collective. So he was the reason that it got started, but it's for all athletics. It's not just football. We support the basketball team, supported women's lacrosse, which has been a big focus of ours. All the athletes, even some track and field. It all depends on the support that alums want to give. They can come and give to Friends of the Heights, which is the name of our collective, and they can designate what sports they want to give it to, or they can just give it to the collective as a whole. So, I mean, it takes some time. You guys are going to see there's going to be some fits and starts. A lot of people are like, well, what does the school have to do with it? Well, the school really doesn't have anything to do with it. BC, we're not affiliated with BC because we can't be. That's not how it works. It's slow going, and people want to support it, but they definitely want to learn more about it. Even though it's been around a couple of years, I've been talking about this for years. So you knew it was coming, and now you just have to adapt.
You talk about the BC women's lacrosse team. I think Syracuse knows they got a lot of talent on their roster after last season. But you talked about the coach, and part of recruiting is obviously recruiting to the Boston College area. But Coach Hafley, 5-3 this year, 1 win away from a bowl, coming off of a 3-9 season, and then before that, 2 6-win seasons. What is the temperature on Coach Hafley with BC fans, and what are kind of his strengths and weaknesses as a head coach?
Yeah, I think Jeff's first of all, Jeff's a great person. He's a very good coach, very good schematically in what he does. The issue in today's college football landscape is head coaches don't get to coach as much. You're constantly recruiting. You're a CEO. Your time is being pulled in so many different directions that when, as an X's and O guys, you're almost missing a lot of time in the meetings because of all your other responsibilities. And now with the transfer portal and with NIL stuff, you're re-recruiting your team every year on top of the high school recruiting, on top of the transfers coming in. There's a lot of responsibilities on his plate. And I think for Jeff, he's found a good space. He's a really good person. He's not, this is no indictment to Steve Adazio, who was there. Steve Adazio was a fiery, offensive line coach that would get into people's space and it was very intense. Jeff's intense, but he's just not that way. He really supports the kids. He uses his NFL background to help prepare them as best they can. He's not a yeller or screamer in that way, but his staff, they do a good job of developing these guys, and he really takes a lot of pride into that. And that's something that it's coming along the way. You'll always hear the noises, and even when you look now at 5-3, 2 of their losses are to teams that are in the top 15 in the country. So they don't look as bad as you think. The Northern Illinois loss, obviously stings, but you'll see that every week. I mean, you guys have seen it. Look at what's happened in the ACC this year, right? You have Louisville beat Notre Dame, then the next week they go and lose to Pitt. Georgia Tech loses to BC, and then the next week they go beat UNC. Right? There's games like we can go down the list about teams that have had big games and won and haven't, and the list will go on and on. But for Coach Hafley and his job security, he doesn't talk about it. He doesn't think about it. I think he's proud of the team and how they've responded to the early season adversity, and they're just really focused on continuing to compete and continuing to kind of put that full 60-minute game, which I think he would say they haven't done yet.
When you look at the BC program and compare it to the Syracuse program, they've done, better in recruiting. You see the 2 6-win seasons in 2020 and 2021, which would be as many, 6 or more win seasons as Dino Babers has had over, this is his 8th season as head coach. Do you think, Syracuse's program can learn anything from a kind of a comparable school in the Northeast and in the ACC in BC from the way that Jeff Hafley is running things in Chestnut Hill?
I think both schools would tell you that 6 wins is not enough that they want. I think the standard needs to be a little higher at both. I don't really think Syracuse is going to learn a lot from BC or vice versa. I think they're probably emulating some programs that have had some more sustained success, to be blunt. I think both schools would say that 6 wins is not the goal each year, right? You want to be higher, you want to strive for higher. So I'm thinking that they're probably looking to raise the bar. Now, that being said, is how do you go about it, right? With whether it's NIL, whether it's transfer, it's finding a way to do all those things and to put a more competitive team on the field without losing the culture of your locker room, right? Because you want guys that are going to be there and stay there their entire time. And it's not guys that are just kind of coming and you're renting guys that are 1-year guys and coming in and coming out, because it's tough to establish a culture there. So I think for both Syracuse and BC that they need to continue to embrace who they are, recruit towards that, and then build that strong culture where people are going to want to come there and be a part of it. Still get compensated, but it may not be like the top dollars. But I think there's a lot of misconception out there that there's, teams that are signing $1 million deals for every single player on the roster. And it's just not the truth. There's money out there. Don't get me wrong. Cause there always is, but the amounts that are being thrown out there are probably not in the same ballpark that a lot of people realize.
Well, something we know for sure is that Syracuse and BC will be playing each other a lot in the coming years. One of the protected rivalries in the new ACC scheduling format. Looking at the matchup specifically this week, obviously Thomas Castellanos is at the top of the scouting report, and Robichaux being number 2 on the offensive side. But what does some things, whether it be defense, offense, that BC does that Syracuse really needs to account for if they want to, keep it competitive, because they haven't done it in the last couple of weeks against their opponents?
Well, momentum is fleeting, good and bad. So you just never know in that way. Syracuse has a good offense. You guys are, the ability to run the football. I like Schrader as a quarterback. Have liked him for the last couple of times I've seen him. It all just depends on who can seize the momentum first and who can take advantage of it. I think for BC, it's their focal point is their offensive line. You watch those guys, you got 5 guys across the board there that are pretty talented players, and 4 of them are, maybe even 5 of them could play in the NFL coming out of this. So BC offensively is going to rely on that and use the dynamic athletic abilities of Thomas Castellanos. Robichaux has been a great addition as well. He's a big power back that's not afraid to run behind his line and his pads. And then the receivers, there's some explosiveness there. Lewis Bond is a guy who's jumped on the scene. He's not a Zay Flowers type where you kind of see those short, quick explosive moves. He's a little bit of a longer strider, but he's a tough kid. He's got solid hands. He's made some big plays in the passing game for the Eagles as well. And they have a couple, different guys that can go out and catch the ball as well. So, really a really diverse offense, and then a defense that needs to play aggressive and kind of get after people to maybe get by another possession for that offense. Because the more times the offense has the ball, the more likely they are to do something positive.
Well, Syracuse's offense, on the other hand, has been pretty abysmal over the past, 3 to 4 games, to say the least. They talk about it after every game and every week. We have to start fast. We have to start fast. And then each time have not started fast. whether it be a 3-and-out or a turnover on the opening drive. How important has starting fast been for Boston College? And do you think if they get off to a fast start against Syracuse that, we've seen, if a team scores first against Syracuse, the game has then gotten out of hand? I mean, the spread right now I'm seeing is the Orange favored by 2.5, which seems like
Right.
it's right. I could have seen either team favored anywhere between, 3 points. But if BC ends up starting fast in this game, do you think we as in, the Syracuse population here could be in for a fifth straight blowout?
Well, you never know. That's why they play them, right? And I did look, and in the last 4 games, I think Syracuse averaging 8.5 points a game while giving up 32.5 or 38.5 on the other
It's
end.
not good. Whatever it's not
Yeah.
good.
I looked that up, but and you mentioned starting fast. BC does not start fast. They just haven't this year. What they have done well is finish strong. BC's outscored their opponents by 47 or 48 points in the fourth quarter. And that's a testament to the type of offense I think they run. You're right, because if they're on the field a while, they're going to wear defenses down. But they haven't started fast. So maybe this is a battle of super slow starters, or maybe because they're playing at night, everyone's going to wake up and be up for the first half, and then who knows what happens in the second half. But I think you're talking about both teams that have aspired to start fast and haven't. So you just don't know in these games, especially the BC Syracuse games, and especially in the Dome. I've been there a ton. It's always weird things happen in the Dome. I've been a part of some weird ones playing wise, and been a part of some ones where I've walked out of there scratching my head like, I don't know how that happened, but it did. And it's you're the only night game, so it's like you're the focal point. So maybe these guys will rise up to the challenge of being the only show in town. But we'll see. And maybe it's a battle of whoever starts first or starts fastest wins. But it's tough to say. I think they're pretty evenly matched on both sides. I think turnovers are going to be a big factor. They always are. Turnovers and third down conversions are going to be big. Thomas Castellanos has turned the football over with interceptions. I think he has 7 or 9 on the year, and then he's got a couple fumbles. I know Syracuse Schrader's been sacked like 25 times. You guys have given up 27 sacks. So, it's going to be the team that makes the least amount of mistakes, and then the teams that capitalize on mistakes.
You mentioned, having memories in the Dome. What are some of your favorite playing or spectating memories when it comes to Boston College and Syracuse matchups?
All right, my favorite one as a player, and this is it's just kind of funniest moment as a player, I guess, was it was either 95 or 97. We were playing in the Dome, and Marvin Harrison was returning punts for Syracuse. And our special teams coach all week was like, all right, we're not going to kick it to him. We're going to angle kicks. We're going to kick it high. We're going to do all this stuff. And yeah, perfect. And the first punt of the game, punter comes in. He was a freshman, so it was 95. And he kicks a line drive shot to Marvin Harrison right down the middle, who caught it on the dead run and just went 65 yards for a touchdown. And as, the punter was peeling back to go make the tackle, he got blindsided. This is before that rule existed, right? He got blindsided and kind of got his bell rung. And as he gets to the sideline, he's kind of shaking his head, and the special teams coach is like, "What? I told you. I told you not to kick it to him. We practiced all week not doing that." And he's kind of looking at him, and then one of the guys on the punt team just comes over and just totally just goes and punches him right in the face. And I started dying laughing, and I'm like, "Good, you deserved it." So, that was one of my funny moments on that. One as a spectator is, I'm sure you guys as Syracuse fans, I don't know if you guys grew up watching Syracuse or not. Syracuse was great for my favorite play down by the goal line, where they go play action bootleg to the right and sneak a tight end out to the left. It's coming. It happens every time, and the guy's always wide open. And you guys did it to beat BC, I think, on one of the last plays of the game. One of the first years I was broadcasting, and I was in the end zone, and I was like, here it comes. And then it came, and then you see it, and then it lands right in front of my face, and I just dropped the mic and just started walking up to the booth. I was just like, I can't watch this. This is just too painful.
We'll see if Dino Babers and Jason Beck bring out the sneaky tight end, play action play in the
Yeah.
red zone. If Syracuse is even able to get in the red zone on Friday night. Scott, can't thank you enough for your time.
You guys are kind of Lou Holtzing me in the talking down about Syracuse and this, and like, oh, feel bad for us. It's like, this is like, I've seen this game before. I know what you guys are doing, and
we're not.
I don't
I can't.
appreciate
We're not.
it.
No intention, no
No
intention from it. It's
I
the
don't know.
last 4 weeks have been, or 5 weeks plus the bye, have been a very interesting football scene here at Syracuse.
It's been bad.
Well, what's the vibe for like in the area? What are the thoughts on Babers, and where's been the disconnect after the 4-0 start?
I mean, I was at North Carolina, I was at Florida State, I was at Virginia Tech 3 in a row. And after each game, him and all the players have come out and said, we've been executing in practice. It's just not translating. And
Yeah.
I like, it's just like, it's so hard to sift through the coach and player speak of like, are there actual issues here, or are they just not, talented or prepared enough? And
what is it, playing on the road? Is it that? Is it
they did play 3 games on the road. But they had a bye in between 2. And I would say, Virginia Tech, I would say, is pretty comparable to where Syracuse is at the moment. And they just came out and absolutely boat raced them. I understand losing big at Florida State. I mean, North Carolina was hot when Syracuse played North Carolina. But then, you look back and you lost by 17 at home to Clemson, who is also 4-4. And you lost by 33 to a North Carolina team that then lost at home to Virginia, who everyone thought was the worst team in the ACC. So maybe Syracuse just has played teams at the wrong time, or there's an actual disconnect between coach and player. But I think if things go poorly on Friday night, then I don't see how some sort of change cannot be made. I don't know if it'll be a coaching change, but something has to change.
It's more about the offense too. It's like there's just been no movement whatsoever. Like for most, there's like one drive every here and then that they can move the ball, but there's been no movement. And then after the Florida State game, the comments that were made were that the offense was going to get better because of the easier schedule down the stretch. And then you come out of the bye week and the offense looks probably worse than what it looked like in Florida State, is also contributing factors.
Yeah, I mean, is it your offensive line? Is it the skill guys? Is it the play calling? I guess I'm having a tough time because I like the quarterback. I've liked him. He's a tough kid.
No,
Schrader's definitely good.
The problem I keep finding is that it's Jason Beck and Robert and I last year are a pass first offense. And Garrett Schrader is a good quarterback, but he's not like a drop back and throw the football quarterback who's going to go through his progressions and find his second or third receiver who's open. The intermediate passing game has been talked about a lot as just being completely non-existent. And Schrader has been a one read, and then if his first option isn't open, he tries to tuck the ball and run. And he talked about that after Virginia Tech, that he has to do a better job of not taking losses on early downs, because Syracuse has been behind the chains a lot. But I don't know how feasible that is to change in the middle of a season to improve your progressions like that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I watched the Purdue game. And you guys, he played well in that game, and I've seen him in the last couple of years, obviously. And it's funny that you mentioned the intermediate passing game. It's something that go watch, and just you don't need to like watch every single game and break them down, but go watch a lot of the successful teams in college football. The teams that can do that are the teams that win. Obviously, you have to have explosive plays, right? You got to be able to run football. You got to be able to stop, not turn the football over, blah blah blah. The teams that can actually throw and run a consistent intermediate passing games are the teams that win. And it's a thing that it's like it's like a 17-footer in hoop, right? No one wants to take it because it's not a 3 and it's not a dunk, right? The intermediate passing game has become that kind of part of football that not a lot of people really want to use it, where they can run, just simple pass concepts where you're running some high-low floods, where you're running some crossing stuff. You don't see enough of it anymore, but to have the ability to do it is a separating factor for that, unless you
Yeah.
have an absolutely dynamic quarterback. I think those are the two things in college football. If you have a dynamic quarterback, they can change a lot of stuff. Right? They make, as I say, it makes everything better. The food tastes better. The weather looks better. Your girlfriend looks better. Like everything else is better when you have a good quarterback. But that and the intermediate passing game is really important. I think that you don't see enough of it, not a lot of focus on it. But
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear your guys' take on this as well, because we are always emotional in the middle of the week, guys, right? Because we always get caught up in like it's either the worst or the best, and it's tough because when you're sitting there watching it, you're just like, well, it's kind of in between. So I think that's kind of where we're both at. BC's probably not as good as the 4-win winning streak. Syracuse probably isn't as bad as a 4-game losing streak, and now it's just going to become, who's less mediocre, I guess, right?
that is the question we'll be trying to answer on Friday night. Scott, can't thank you enough. It was great to chat with you, and really appreciate you taking some time ahead of Friday's game.
Yeah, my pleasure. Looking forward to it. But I do have one more question, because I'm going to have some more time there. I always do dinosaur the night before the game, but I got some time on Friday. Any recommendations for me? I'm not coming to your guys' frat houses. The gas beers, I mean, it would be fun, but I wouldn't do my job very well. But, and unfortunately, I got to get on the bus afterwards, so I can't oblige that. But normal situations, I'd happy to do it.
Where would I say? What are you looking for? Are you looking for like a lunch spot or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, a lunch spot.
A couple of the
Don't
delis.
send me down don't send me into like some place where I'm gonna get beat up because I don't want to get sabotaged. Because then I will find you, and then we'll have some issues.
A couple of the lunch places. There's a couple of delis called. There's one deli called Lombardi's, the great Italian sandwiches. And then another place
we've
called.
Had those after the game.
Yeah,
we've had those after the game.
Thanos is also
Thanos was going to be my second recommendation as a deli. If you're looking for
Thanos, like the Avengers, dude.
Yeah, well, like the Avengers, dude. But
also the restaurant right next to Dinosaur, a Pizza. It's like a pizza Italian place. That's actually pretty good too.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. If don't, you guys are going to get really nasty Twitter call outs if someone spits in my food, or if anything happens. I'm going to definitely, now that I got your names and I know that you're from Jersey and Jersey and Connecticut, so now I know where to find you guys. That was
we would never steer any of our guests wrong here, Scott. Good luck.
Right.
Good luck getting
Famous
to Syracuse.
last words.
Good luck getting to Syracuse, and excited to see you at the game on Friday.
Thanks. Nice to see you, Jordan and Ethan. Thanks for the time, guys.